Hello, and welcome to the Muses Lab podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Siobhan L. And I've been wanting to do this particular episode. There's a couple of episodes, a couple of topics I've wanted to discuss for some time, but this one I've wanted to do for a minute. And what I notice is that when I am planning to speak on things that are very vulnerable to me, it takes me a while to get my mental bearings together, my emotional bearings together, in order for me to talk about it and express it in a way that has some semblance of clarity, where I won't hit a wall because I'm meeting I'm meeting parts of myself that I have not quite reconciled with, and I now have to take a step back and process and work through this new space or this wall that I've hit before I can break through, go over, go around, so to speak. So I've avoided this particular topic for some time, but it's it's resurfacing in different aspects of my life, and now I feel empowered comes to mind, but I don't think that's the word that I want to use in particular. But I feel more comfortable with talking about this particular space. And even though I'm using myself as a case study, which is essentially a core of the Muses Lab framework, me using my life as a case study to bridge the gap in understanding and relatability with my community, which is you all, the audience who listens to this podcast and engages and indulges with other aspects of content that I create. Again, while I'm using myself as an example, this may apply. So absorb as needed, receive as needed, and share as needed, because maybe this may not apply to you, but it may apply to a friend who is operating in the same space. Share as needed. So, without further ado, the topic is about loyalty. And I'm speaking to this from two different points of view. One from my lived data, my lived experience as a Leo. So, the point of view of my life, but also from the lens of being a Leo. Because Leos, whether we're talking about a sidereal Leo or a tropical Leo, both of us motherfuckers is loyal as hell. Leos are loyal, right? Regardless of how evolved we may be, Leos, to a detriment, are loyal. And I've mentioned this occurrence, or this story, I should say, in my content in parts, but I'm solidifying this here. What are we in? 2025. So 8 years ago, yes, 8 years ago, I got a past life regression reading from an Olarisha who is a child of or Omo Chango. And they said to me, as part of the reading, I'm not getting into the whole past life part, but the part that stuck with me the most of it, the majority of it stuck with me, but this part stuck with me the most. She said, mind yourself being the knight in people's lives, acting as the knight, because loyalty is going to be your downfall. That reverberated in my body so deeply, because I am loyal to a detriment. If you've been listening to this podcast for now the last 3 years, it'll be 3 years in April. Shout out to me for consistency. It'll be 3 years in April since I started what is now called the Muses Lab podcast, but what was the Say It with Sex podcast. In season 2, episode 7, I talk about a love, I can say lost, because only the divine knows if that person, or just the energy that was between myself and that person, will circle back, will boomerang itself back to me. But I talk about in that episode how I was so loyal to my then best friend that I loyaled myself out of potentially a relationship, a marriage, possibly. I'll never know what may have come between this person and myself, but because I was so loyal and I listened to someone who was essentially being a hater, they were essentially being a hater. Because I was loyal to this person, I cut myself off from an experience, right? I don't know what may have manifested from this experience, but because I never gave myself an opportunity to see where it would go, because I was being loyal to someone who was never loyal to me, I missed out. And relationships aside, me being loyal to people has placed me in a lot of positions that I didn't need to be in, that I didn't deserve to be in, that I should not have been in if I had not had been so loyal. Even speaking up on how people treated me, being loyal to the friendship, and oh, well, I know their feelings and I know how they're going to respond, and I don't want to rock the boat, or I don't want to cause conflict, because confrontation is different from me. I can be confrontational. I do not like conflict. I do not like how conflict feels in my body. And because I have this false sense of loyalty to people who really haven't reciprocated a modicum, millisecond, a small percentage of what I've given to them, I've I've shot myself in the foot, proverbially speaking. I've played myself because I was loyal, because I wanted to see a relationship through, because I believed that people can evolve and change, and they can. That's not an incorrect point of view to have. But in order for someone to evolve and change, they have to actually want to do that. And all the people, I can say this with confidence, all the people who I have been loyal to, who have not been loyal to me, were incapable. Were incapable of reciprocity, and chose not to find, I guess, the capability, or attempt to find their pathway to being capable of reciprocating loyalty, reciprocating, again, a modicum of the energy that I had given to them. They just chose not to. And the disappointment of that crashed me in so many ways. It cracked me in so many ways. It hurt me. And grieving that has been a very long process. And I find myself in these situations in different forms, in different ways, because again, healing is not linear. And even if we meet the reconciliation of one aspect of our healing journey, again, that's just one aspect. That's like level one. So now here we are at level two, and it feels more intense because we have to apply what we've learned. And I did not. I did not apply what I learned. I was blinded by, I can't say because I wanted to be friends with this person, but I was blinded by the potential. And as I'm saying this, I'm gonna get to this quote that I saw. I don't know who originated this quote, but it's sat with me, like it's part of my psyche now. Like I can't unsee it. I can't unlearn it. But I saw the potential in other people and thought that people would realize themselves in what I saw. So here's the thing about potential. Here's the quote about potential that I recently learned. Again, I don't know who the originator is. I saw somebody post it on Threads. They didn't credit the source of who they got it from. I wish they did. But what I saw was the potential that you see in other people is what you would do if you were in their shoes. That is going to rock me forever because how accurate. The accuracy is astounding. Because when you think about all the people that you've seen potential in, or that you like, I see the potential, I know there's potential, it's really based on what you think they should be doing in the position that they're in with the resources and the access that they have. So it's like you seeing this character on TV and you're like, man, if I had this, I would do X, Y, and Z. That's potential. There's another quote about potential that's on American Fiction that Issa Rae's character says. I'm gonna find it because I feel like I wrote it down somewhere. I'm gonna find it. But me recognizing the potential in other people made me and put me in this place where I just allowed myself to be used. I thought I wrote it down, but I'm gonna find that quote. Found it. Ha ha ha. This one is even stronger. Potential is what people see when they think what's in front of them isn't good enough. Centaura Golden, that was Issa Rae's character on American Fiction. So even that part rocked me because when you think about as it pertains to potential, when you think about how you are perceiving other people and what you are hoping they see within themselves, it's you recognizing how those two quotes kind of are synchronistic. It's you again saying that what you see in front of them isn't good enough. And at the same time, going, well, if I had your resources and access and whatever else I think you have, I would do this, which again affirms that you don't think who they are, the person that they're presenting in front of you, is good enough. And I never thought hope would be something perceived in a not so great way, because when I think about how loyal I've been to a lot of people, it's because I hoped that they would be the same towards me. Like, loyalty for me is centered around hope. Hope that my loyalty would be, mm, hope that my loyalty would be received, and I guess in so many ways rewarded in some form or fashion, whether that rewarding is the continuation of the relationship, being recognized for the loyalty, being thanked, being acknowledged for the loyalty, which is a very Leo trait. There's a misconception, I believe, that pop astrology or just people who perceive Leo suns, risings, moons, other Leo placements, that we love the spotlight, which I do not believe is true. Some of us do love the spotlight, and that could be a lot of those Leos who are operating ego first. They may love the spotlight. Leos like attention. We do. We like to be the center of attention. We like to be seen, not necessarily the spotlight, but we desire to be seen. We desire to have eyes on us and be received and admired and adored, worshiped even for some of us. But really, at the core of a Leo, we desire to be acknowledged. Even if the spotlight wasn't on us, credit the source is a very, like, if there was an image or an archetype for credit the source, Leo is there. We are the, you need to credit your source. You need to say where you got it from. You need to acknowledge that you learned from me. You need to acknowledge that you got this from me. You need to acknowledge that I did this for you, and not from a transactional perspective. And I think that's where people may perceive that Leo's wanting to be acknowledged is transactional. It's not. It's not transactional for us as a Leo speaking. It's not transactional for us. Being acknowledged means you saw us. Leo's desire to be seen. Remember, attention. But attention isn't always negative. When people think about folks who are attention seeking, it isn't necessarily because we want the scene to only be on us and for everyone else to be ignored and dismissed. That for some, that is not always the case. The attention is the acknowledgement. And when I receive the attention, it means you see me. Because again, Leos want to be seen. So when you acknowledge where you got your information from, when you acknowledge that I am pouring into you, when you acknowledge my loyalty, when you acknowledge my love, when you acknowledge how I show up for you, how I support you, that means you see me. You see how I'm an active participant in this relationship, how I'm making active decisions to show up a specific way in this relationship, and you acknowledge that my efforts, my actions, because remember Leo's a fire sign, so that's about action, right? My actions are pleasurable for you. What I do and who I am for you pleases you. Because underneath the loyalty aspect of a Leo, we like to please. We aim to please. Pleasing arouses us. That is our arousal mechanism. We get off on pleasing people. We get off, we get joy, we get satisfaction, we get happiness. So intertwined within our space of loyalty is the action of pleasure. We want you to feel good. You can't come into a Leo space and walk away feeling like dejected. That means we didn't do our job. So now, because we are relentless, we're going to do everything we can to ensure that anytime you're in our space, in our atmosphere, that you're sharing time with us, that it is a pleasurable moment. It's a pleasurable occurrence. And we aim to please by making that a consistent thing, because that's what we like to do. We like to be consistent. I want to be consistently loyal to you because I want to prove that I'm here for you, that I love you, that I care for you, that I'm always going to show up for you. So I want to be consistent in my actions. I want to consistently please you because I want you to know this is not a one off, because people tend to think Leos are flighty or that we're just doing it because we want that one time acknowledgement, 15 minutes of fame, and then we're off that. That's not usually the case for most Leos. We want you to consistently feel at ease, feel pleasure, feel safe with us. And now it becomes a competition within ourselves because how can I constantly ensure that every time you're with me, it's a new experience that's also pleasurable and memorable for you. So now I'm always going to go out of my way to create these experiences for you because I like how I feel when you feel good around me. I like how I feel when you are pleased around me. I like how I feel when I see you joyous and happy and at ease. I like how that makes me feel. That energy reverberates off of me or reverberates back to me. And now I'm just cultivating this warm space where we can all be vulnerable and open and transparent and not feel like we have to mask, because that's important to me. Because as a Leo, I value authenticity. So when I think about loyalty in that space, right? When people recognize that is who I am, if I am not discerning, if I'm so hyper focused, this is where my ADHD comes in. If I'm so hyper focused on aiming to please, my blind spot is that I can't discern whether the person is appreciating what I'm doing or hanging around and siphoning me because they know how I'm going to show up. They know that I'm always going to give my best. It may not be 100% because my 75 looks like a lot of people's 100. So it may not be my 100%, but it'll definitely feel like 100%. You're never going to feel like it's subpar with me because I'm a Leo who values luxury. I value opulence. I value high end experiences. So even if it's the most inexpensive thing that I do, I'm going to do what I can to ensure the experience doesn't feel like that. It's never going to feel cheap with me. And even if I am being a little cheap, it don't look like it. It doesn't feel like I'm being cheap because that's just the energy that I bring into whatever I'm doing, what I'm wearing, how I'm speaking, how I'm showing up is always going to be a space of excellence because that's an embodiment that I have. And that is also to my detriment in so many ways because I'm an extremist. And most Leos are. They operate on either side of the spectrum. There's not much mutability there because we're fixed signs. So we're either going to be very laissez faire and very cavalier, or we're going to be very relentless and high pressure and assertive and even aggressive. So those are the extremes that Leos live on. And I toggle between certain extremes because I have ADHD. So I toggle between certain extremes, and that kind of makes me mutable in that respect. I'm also a Sag rising, so that's how I'm able to toggle between two ends of the spectrum. But because I have some mutable qualities, I've adapted some mutable qualities within myself. I've allowed myself to embrace fluidity and flexibility and being nimble and agile that allows me to operate on either extreme depending on the situation. But most Leos are going to be very assertive. They're going to be very relentless. So because Leos tend to operate in extremes, you're always going to get the best because you can't be around me and not get the best. That doesn't compute for Leo. So when you think about all of those characteristics and you apply them to loyalty, it's very easy how a Leo or someone like myself, someone who operates from that point of view, from that lens, it's very obvious how loyalty can be to our detriment. Because loyalty, at least I believe, loyalty is how I establish true relationships. At least that's what I told myself. If I'm unable to show my loyalty, then people won't believe that I want to have this relationship, whether it's romantic, professional, or platonic. People won't believe me if I don't show my loyalty. Maybe somewhere I took on this mob persona where I gotta operate in extremes to prove my loyalty to people. But somewhere in my psyche, definitely somewhere in my youth, I told myself that in order for me to establish true relationships with people, real relationships with people, authentic relationships with people, I have to prove my loyalty. And unlearning that has been a challenge. Knowing when to opt out of being loyal to certain people, knowing when to pivot when I see things aren't being reciprocated, knowing when to say no and assert a boundary and let people know that yeah, I'm loyal to you, but this is where I draw the line. This is where the rules of engagement start to be enforced because I cannot compromise my integrity in order to prove or to demonstrate how loyal I am to you, particularly when that demonstration has not been reciprocated on my end. So, as I am unlearning those behaviors and habits within the space of loyalty that have put me at a deficit with myself and in relationships with people. I'm also learning how to speak up for myself and advocate for myself in my relationships, which as much of a yapper as I am, has been very hard for me because I've always been afraid to lose people. And I know that stems from my abandonment issues that I have with like my dad and my parents being divorced and being afraid that people are going to leave me, telling myself at such a young age that I had to be the reason why my parents got divorced and my dad created a new family and just left me, unfortunately, and was not an intricate part. Like something had to be wrong with me. And I've made peace with the fact that it had nothing to do with me, but because that was embedded so deep into my psyche at such a young age, unlearning that and learning how to speak up for myself and being okay with losing people and relationships ending, expiration dates, things needing to sunset is still very new for me. It's still a scary space for me. Even asking people for a favor is hard. I overcame the challenge. I was able to ask someone for a favor. And despite the self-fulfilling prophecy of a no beginning to form in my mind, I pushed past that and I asked anyway and made peace with the fact that if this person said no, then it wasn't the end of the world. When in fact, they actually said yes. So, even the self fulfilling prophecies, the narratives that we create around being able to speak up for ourselves in the space of loyalty, like, yeah, I'm loyal to you, but I'm not going to do this. I'm loyal to you, but this goes beyond my scope. This goes beyond my boundaries. This is a little too far from me. This doesn't feel good for me. I see how you're treating this person. That I don't really rock with that. And being okay if that person decides to cut off the relationship. Because what I've learned over time is that if it is very easy for you to cut off the relationship, were we ever friends? I don't talk much about one of the last people that cut me off. I know I mentioned it in one of these podcast episodes. I think it's episode 3 when I talk about caring for someone who you shouldn't be friends with. That's not the title, but that you can find it there. Caring and Friends is part of the title. That's not the official title though. I did mention I think I briefly or maybe I did go deep into it. I talked about a former friend of mine who we went to high school together. She's younger than me. So when I was a senior, she was a freshman. And we were cool. We reconnected later in life and we became like, well, what I thought in my elusive space, in my illusion, I thought we had become really good friends. And what I didn't know is that she moves wild. Sis moved wild, okay? She was living with her boyfriend. Her and her boyfriend at that time were living in his parents' house in the basement. They were supposed to be getting married, but she had niggas on the side. She was out in the streets hanging and doing the things. And because she does not drive, she has a license, I believe, but she didn't have a car. Because she didn't have a car, she would be stuck in Manhattan when the buses stopped coming back from Jersey, and she would be calling me 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, can you come get me? And because I'm a girl's girl, I'm a woman's woman, I'm not gonna have you out in Manhattan at 3 o'clock in the morning stuck. I'm just not. So on various occasions, because I'm loyal, on various occasions, I drove to Manhattan from New Jersey to pick her up. At that time, the toll was like $4. So what it wasn't an issue for me to be going back and forth. It's not the toll. I would never do that. I would have to Uber somebody at this juncture. Like I'm gonna Uber you. I'm gonna send you an Uber. I'm not I'm not coming to get you from New York, but I'm gonna send you an Uber though. I will do that. I will send you an Uber so you could get home and you could get home safely. You could talk to me on the phone. I keep the phone on while you're in the car. So, that person knows that they can't try no shit with you. I have the location, so I know when you get dropped off, like I'll keep all that stuff on. I'm not spending $20 to go across the bridge. It's no. I'm not doing that. Not at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I will send you an Uber. So, times have changed. This it's been almost 10 years since all of these things have taken place. And her boyfriend, because if I'm picking you up from the city, that means you telling your man that you with me. So now I'm the scapegoat. Now your man think I'm purposely trying to keep you outside and get you caught up in some shenanigans and not being respectful to your relationship. So the last time I went and picked her up, because she got herself caught the fuck up out there. The last time I went to pick her up, I said to her, I love you, but we're going to have space because your man is standing outside looking at me, looking at this car, like I'm the one that's keeping you outside, like he ready to cuss me out, and you the one that's out here wilding and you not telling him what you doing. So we gonna have some space. I'm not saying a friendship is ending. We need some space because I feel like you're taking advantage of me. So I was able to assert my boundary then. And I say maybe 5, 6 years later, we reconnected again and we became very, very close. At least that's what I thought. We became close and she wasn't with that person anymore. She, broke up with that person. She was dating someone else or just, being single, living her single life. And this whole time, her and I would literally be speaking every freaking day. Like all day, every day. I don't know if she still lives there now, but at the time, she was living around the corner from me. So she would come to my house. We pick her up, go out, hang out, all the things. We was like regular friends do. Hanging out in these streets. We was outside. This pre-COVID. So we motherfucking outside, right? Every day, her and then and another one of my besties, the three of us had a group chat. We had a DM on IG. We be talking every fucking day. This is Labor Day, around Labor Day 2019. It's etched in my brain. I can't forget it. Labor Day 2019. I didn't realize I was gonna give y'all story time, but here we are. Me and my bestie get a DM with a screenshot for flight information to Arizona. I'm confused because who you going to Arizona with? Now I recognize that I have a tendency to be a mother hen. I'm working on that. I recognize that I have a tendency to be a very, very much a mother hen and very, very overly protective of my friends, particularly my women friends. I'm very overprotective of people. So what the fuck you doing? How the fuck you going to Arizona? That's across the country. That's across the Mississippi. That's far. Who are you going with? What's the license plate number? Where the fuck you staying at? I need details because this is a different environment. This ain't to say that you can't take solo trips. You can, but at least one person need to know your details, right? Somebody got to know where the fuck you at, just in case some shit go down. You always got to have at least one person that has all of the details, your flight plan, where you staying, where you're traveling to, what countries you're traveling to, what cities you're traveling to, what's the itinerary. Someone has to have the itinerary, bare minimum one person, because you just never know in this type of environment that we live in. You got to have one person to have all the details, right? All we got is flight information. And I'm looking at what time the flight is supposed to board, and she late. She in a car going to JFK late, about to miss her motherfucking flight. And she's sending us the flight details. So my bestie and I are confused because why didn't you just ask one of us to take you to the airport? And two, I talk to you every fucking day. I didn't know you was going to Arizona. Okay, cool. Who you going to Arizona with? Oh, it's this guy. Guy, you you fucking with some nigga? You getting flued out? I mean, shout out to you for getting flued out, but who is this man? What's happening? Oh, I'll talk about it later. I know why you don't want to tell me. He's somebody you ain't supposed to be messing with. And you didn't want to tell me because you thought I was going to wag my finger at you. Maybe. But what I would have told you is to just be careful. Like, you grown, you do with your vagina whatever you want to do with your vagina. But be careful, right? So she missed her flight. He put her on another flight. She stayed an extra couple days. She came back. And my bestie and we had, I thought we were having a conversation. There's multiple voice notes going back and forth, texting and everything. And I was like, maybe we need to have this conversation in person. She was like, no, we don't need to have this conversation in person. And I was just so shocked that she had been talking to this guy, DM, relationship, very much an relationship. She had been in communication with this man for 90 fucking days. And I talked to this bitch every fucking day, and she never mentioned him. And it made me feel away. It made me feel away because now I'm trying to understand what about me makes you feel uncomfortable to tell me that you're in conversation with someone, that you're building a relationship with someone who's on the other side of the fucking country. What is it about me that made you hesitant? Did you think I was going to judge you? Did you think I was going to wag my finger at you? Did you think I was going to talk you out of it? Like, in order for you to speak to me and damn near see me every day, literally every day. And out of that time, you carved out 90 days to build some type of relationship, or 6 months, really. You carved out all this time to build a relationship or establish a relationship with someone and never felt the need to tell me. I need to rethink our friendship because I thought we were best friends. And I realized I was your best friend, but you were never mine. She took what I said, deleted me, deleted and blocked me off of every social media platform known to man in 2019, and then went on social media after she blocked me and said, if you need to rethink the friendship, we good. I'll remove myself. Then proceeded to say, if we fell out, then you stay there. Oh, that's impossible for us to be friends at all. Because for us to have been reconnected for almost a decade, for us to have reconnected for almost a decade and be riding this wave for so long, and this one situation, you snap, delete me for some nigga. This over some dick that you just met in person a week ago. You've known me for over 20 years, but this dude that you just met online, whose environment he just flew you out to a week ago, you cut me off over him? Oh, we were never friends. That's impossible. This one little tiff could not have ended a friendship if we were not already friends. And here's where loyalty comes to a detriment. Because how did I not fucking see that shit? How did I not see it? How? How did I miss that? Every day, encouragement, sharing my life experiences, my lived data, and just really empowering her to walk in what I thought her most pleasurable self, her most spiritual self. I'm offering guidance as she's awakening to her spiritual gifts, as she's coming into what I thought she was coming into, her sensuality. Clearly she was already there. But I realized that my loyalty to this person blinded me from the fact that she created a persona to be in my space because it felt good. And then when it no longer felt good, when I held her accountable for her actions, she cut me off. I was so blinded by that. And it made me take a step back because I realized that while I have a tendency to put people behind frosted glass windows, very metaphorical. In order to have direct access to me, you have to in so many ways prove yourself. I have to be able to trust you because I know who I am at the core and at my center. And there's a small group of people who's behind the velvet rope. So there are a lot of people, because I'm transparent about certain things, believe that they have a closeness to me that does not exist. But that's just because there's certain things that I don't feel are secretive, or when I talk about my sexuality, that's not something that I feel like I need to closet because I'm comfortable in my sensuality and my sexuality. I'm comfortable to share my stories because that's information that I'm sharing, that's data that I'm sharing through my lived experiences, and people can learn from that, right? So because I'm so open about those parts of my life, people think that they have a closeness to me that they don't. And a lot of people who actually have access to me don't even realize that they have that type of access to me. So I'm learning to get better at the differentiation, but I recognize that she did she did the same thing to me that I do to other people. I thought I was behind her velvet rope when really I was just behind the glass. I was behind the glass that I thought was a clear space. And when I got too close to the glass, I bust my head open to the motherfucking white meat. And I was pissed. I was pissed and I was hurt because why would you do that? Why would you let me think that I was that close to you? So like those people, I don't make them think. I don't create an environment to let people think that they're closer to me. They just assume that way because they know certain information about me. So these are assumptions that a lot of people make because they know certain things about me. They feel like, oh, we have to have this closeness because she told me this. Not necessarily. So that's an assumption. But our relationship was us spending time, like we were intimate as far as spending time together, sharing information, being close, having talks, conversations, hanging out. There was an intimacy there. And to know that was a facade this entire time, that hurt me. It didn't break me, but it hurt me. And having to grieve friendships, like friendship breakups, are definitely worse than romantic breakups because you are more intimate with your friends than you are with your romantic partners. I know people don't like to admit that, but that is facts. There's a different intimacy, there's a longevity that's there. 20 years I've known this person. And of those 20, I say about 15 years we had a closeness, or I thought was a closeness. And to know that all of that was fake, that blew my mind. And I think that's where I started to reassess, what does loyalty look like for me? Am I really paying attention to how people are interacting with me? Am I paying attention to how people move? And in that podcast that I talked about, I mentioned another friend of mine who I'm in a very interesting space with. They participated in some actions that put a very large dent in our relationship. And it could never be what it was, but I still care about that person. And I feel like I shouldn't. I feel like I should be like, fuck you, bitch. But I care. And this is where I'm hitting a wall with my space of loyalty. Like, is it loyalty because I care, or am I just a regular ass human being who has compassion? Am I, because we don't really hang out like that, but we we interact in very similar spaces, and because we are interacting, engaging in similar spaces, and I'm allowing her to bring me into certain rooms. Is that a space of loyalty? Or am I just allowing myself to remain open to opportunities? And this person just happens to be the vessel in which these opportunities are coming from. So, as I'm navigating this relationship and some others that I'm in limbo with, I'm asking myself, am I so loyal that I just refuse to end things that have probably already ended because I don't want to feel like I was the one that was like, fuck this shit, I'm out, even though I should be. I don't want to feel like the one who didn't try, because I don't think that's the Leo in me, but I'm a person that likes to exhaust all my possibilities, that really wants to get down to the very basics, to the core of not necessarily benefit of the doubt, but grace. I'm giving you grace on certain things because I know as human beings we have different type of experiences, and those experiences influence how we navigate relationships with other people. And a lot of that could be projection, a lot of that could just be mindset. You could be in this lower than higher self space, and you could just be vibrating on that area, and you're attracting things that are congruent or aligned or adjacent to where you're navigating. So I try to show grace to people, but am I being too gracious? Is the loyalty causing me to be too gracious to certain people who do not deserve to share the same air that I breathe, who do not deserve my grace, who do not deserve my compassion, who do not deserve my empathy? And because either I haven't been able to discern if I've met that metric, or because I don't have the metric at all, I'm at a space to determine when for me does loyalty become a detriment. How, as the knight, am I being too relentless? Am I being too impulsive? Am I being too gung ho and trying to solve X for Y when there is no solve? So I was hoping I was going to come to a resolution here, but I don't have one yet. I don't have a resolution. I just have prompts. And if you resonate with what I've shared here, I hope these prompts are helpful for you. If you know someone who has or is experiencing a similar space, hopefully you share this with them and this is helpful for them. But I don't quite have a solution. I think at best, it is important for me to acknowledge when I'm being too loyal. And then from there, start to create a metric for myself. Like, where's my barometer? How do I know that I'm being too loyal? What occurrences that have happened in my life that I can use as a framework for myself to determine this is where my boundary is? I think I need to pull back. I can't save you. I have a Mars in Cancer, natal tropical in Cancer, and at the time of this recording, Mars in Cancer has gone. It's already direct, and that is my natal placement. And there are some positive attributes to having Mars in Cancer. It's considered a detriment in astrology, but I'm learning to reframe what that looks like. There are some positive attributes, but oftentimes Mars in Cancer be kicking my ass because I'll be overprotective to the wrong things and to the wrong people. I can't be overprotective. I can't be everybody's mother. I can't. I know I have a nurturing nature. I know I have a motherly nature. I know I like to grow and cultivate and build people. I cannot do that for everybody, especially when I don't do it enough for myself. So even there, learning my boundaries there and how that shows up in the ways I'm being loyal to other people, being loyal to myself first, right? Loyalty as a detriment happens when you are not loyal to yourself first. So having these boundaries for myself, knowing what my metrics are, knowing what my ethics are, my ethics around my rules of engagement, how I am asserting loyalty, how I am distributing that, because loyalty should be a privilege. And as I'm talking through this now, I'm realizing I have not treated loyalty as a privilege. I treated it as a gift that I give to everyone, but it's not a gift. It's a privilege. You have to earn my loyalty, just like you have to earn respect. You have to earn my loyalty. It's not a gift. So again, if my story resonates with you, our first step is to retrain our brain to see loyalty as a privilege. Because once we see loyalty as a privilege that has to be earned by people who are seeking it from us, then we can start to create the framework on how people earn it, how it is distributed, and how it is removed. Driving in this country is a privilege. Driving is not a right. Having a license to drive is not a right. It is a privilege. And there are certain rules of engagement that you have to follow in order to maintain your license. You get points put on your license, you have a fine, it becomes suspended, and afterwards, the finality of that is it is revoked. So if we want to use that as a framework, what are the points? What are the demerits? What are the points where you start assessing where you need to take away certain things? The fine, the suspension, and then revoking. I like that. That's a nice framework. I mean, you can repurpose it and you can redefine it to what works for you, what values you have, what definitions make sense, what language works best for you. But as a template, I think that's a good template to treat loyalty as a privilege and have rules of engagement on how it is distributed and when to revoke access. When does access become denied to our loyalty? Yeah, that feels good. Mm, 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 mm. Thank you for tapping in to the Muses Lab podcast. Until we meet again. Thank you for tapping into the Muses Lab. I hope you enjoyed this week's adventure. Be sure to like this episode, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and share the wealth with others. Sign up for my newsletter and join the TML community at www.themuseslab.com. Receive weekly musings, early access, and exclusive drops, as well as discounts on products and services. Thank you once again for tapping in, and until next time.